It seems it's difficult to go more than about a month before seeing an article or a video decrying the death of Micro Four Thirds, when that isn't really true. Panasonic themselves say that the sales figures for their Micro Four Thirds system have stayed somewhat constant. But there are some signs that people have moved away from Micro Four Thirds recently and bought more into full frame cameras for a number of reasons, I suppose. Things like the S5 II having a notably better autofocus system than the GH6 probably helped it there, but also when it comes to the full frame cameras, they aren't that much bigger. In fact, the GH6 is actually a bigger body as a camera than the S5 II, despite being a significantly smaller sensor. And yes, it can do some things that the S5 II cannot, but it also has things it can't do. It doesn't have that very soft depth of field or as good a dynamic range or low light performance anywhere near as good. And this is the problem, I think, with Micro Four Thirds right now. It kind of feels like they've run out of ideas. I'm sure we will see a GH6 II with phase detect autofocus, and I believe we'll see a G9 II from Panasonic. I think OM will release probably an OM10. Maybe at some point in the future we could get something like an OM4, maybe, reviving an older model number. I'm not too sure. But aside from small iterations, it feels like if they want to revitalize the Micro Four Thirds format and bring new customers to it rather than just people upgrading from their existing models, they need some newer ideas. I have one. I have a single idea. And it's one that preoccupied me when I was debating changing away from the OM1. Why don't they make full frame size lenses for the Micro Four Thirds system? And this will be very contentious, particularly on certain photography message boards where I would be decried as Satan for suggesting anything so disgusting. But the thing is, the small lenses for Micro Four Thirds already exist. They've been made. That's what the platform was targeted at for a long time. And so you can get tiny prime lenses, tiny zoom lenses. The OM System 12 to 40 f2.82 is a brilliant little lens. It's like 1/3 the size of the full frame equivalent from, say, Nikon. But what happens if you want shallow depth of field? Micro Four Thirds is brilliant if you don't want shallow depth of field. If you're a macro photographer, the fact that you get more depth of field for the f-stop that you're at is actually a benefit. If you are a wildlife photographer, it's often the same as well. Because for close-up shots of birds, for example, which is what I shoot, I have to shoot at f8 on full frame anyway, because otherwise I only get a single eye in focus and nothing else, which often looks a little bit weird. This is my problem with Micro Four Thirds. You can get a brilliant wildlife lens. You can get the 300mm f4, and it's not too big. It's about this sort of size compared to the 600mm f4 of a full frame camera, which is this sort of size and a much bigger diameter. It is positively tiny. It's much more similar to a 70 to 200 on full frame, and that's great. If you're looking for a portable wildlife lens, what a great little lens it is. But what if you're not looking for that? What if you really want slim depth of field or ridiculous performance? Where's the 300mm f1.8? They could make it. It wouldn't be unwieldy like a full frame 300mm f1.8 would be. I don't even know what sort of diameter that would be. Something like this, I suspect it would be horrendous. But on Micro Four Thirds, 300mm f1.8 would be a reasonable size. It would be more like a 300 2.8 for full frame or something. It would be big. Yes, it would be big, but it would offer something that has, to this point, never existed for Micro Four Thirds, and it might bring new users back to the system. And it doesn't just have to be at the telephoto end. I mean, take a smaller prime lens, for example, like the 25mm f1.8. It's a very nice little lens, but where's the 25mm f1 or f0.95? It would be bigger, yes, but it would give you the depth of field that the full frame equivalents are capable of getting. And you don't have to get rid of the old lens. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. And I personally think that this could be a decent way of expanding the market for Micro Four Thirds. There are inherent benefits to the system. You can get faster readout speeds from a smaller sensor. You can get better heat performance. You can record higher frame rate video. All these sorts of things are really exciting with the platform, but they're limiting themselves by only having the compact tiny lenses, which are great if you want a travel setup, and you often want that. But maybe people want both. Maybe they want a travel setup, but they want the professional setup as well. And currently, there's no real option there for it. Fujifilm tread this line a little bit better on APS-C, and they have a bit of a mix of these lenses. They have things like that colossal 200mm f2 of theirs, a very exciting lens. And this is something that could be brought to Micro Four Thirds as well, in my opinion. But do you have any other ideas or better ideas, or want to decry my idea as being horrible? Please do say so in the comments, because I'm genuinely interested, albeit hurt if you do disagree with me. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time.